Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope everyone is doing well out there this morning and having a great start to your day and a great start to your new week. If you're feeling like me, you're feeling like it's certainly a Monday. I'm definitely a little out of it. Had a great night of sleep, but just feeling sluggish this morning to kickstart the week. So I hope you guys are feeling better than I am. Not upset about anything. I think Monday's just kicking my butt this morning for sure, and just happens sometimes. But we're here to talk about the weather. We'll break it down for you folks, and that's exactly what we'll do, just like we always do for the entire lower 48 for today. All in all, not a very active start to your week. No dangerous weather expected by any means. We will have a shot at some strong to severe storms across Florida, really just the southern tip of Florida. Miami might get a strong storm or two today, so we'll speak a little bit on that. Then we'll speak on everybody else also. A little bit of energy sweeping across the northern portion of the country. That's probably the only bigger topic in today's forecast as far as weather. So we'll break that down. And then after all that, we'll dive again into the severe weather upcoming. We do have a severe weather risk for tomorrow, your Tuesday, for your Wednesday also, kind of in the same general area. And then for Thursday, that's when things start to get a bit more serious as a area of low pressure brings a multi-day threat for severe weather. And then another area of low pressure will dive down into the southern Rockies and eject across the country, also bringing a threat of severe weather for more so probably Saturday, Sunday, maybe even into Monday. So it's two separate things. That's why if you look at the thumbnails, you see number one, number two, and that's because there's quite literally two separate features driving kind of a several day severe weather risk over the course of the end of the week into the weekend, maybe all the way into early next week. So we'll continue to break that down. We'll get more and more detailed as we get closer to it. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it. It gives others an opportunity to do so too. I'll catch up with all the comments later on this afternoon. I got you covered there. So let's get rocking and rolling. So we do have a little bit of shower activity in the Eastern Carolinas. Not a big deal at all. And we do have some storms right off the west coast of Florida that's going to enter the southern sections of the state. The energy will move over. Is it going to weaken by the time it gets into the southern sections of Florida? It looks like we already have some storms kind of south of the Tampa Bay area. Let me know what you're seeing down there if you're tuning in from that area. But this energy will be around in the southern tip of the state. And then we'll drift around the Bahamas also, where you guys can see some strong and severe storms today. Also, now, the rest of the eastern U.S. pretty quiet. A little bit of energy up here in New England. A little bit of energy will try to fly into the region later on today, but, might not get a drop or flake or anything. The central portion of the country, there is a upper trough digging down with an associated cold front. This is bringing some unsettled weather for areas of the Dakotas, and this will kind of reinforce it as it dives out of Canada, this area right here, as it surges to the southeast. But I don't think this will be a big deal at all. Nothing too serious with this. The western U.S., especially the southwestern U.S., continues to be pretty much dominated by this area of high pressure, warmer than average temperatures, stable conditions. Therefore, really no unsettled weather expected. Well, happening right now or expected today. But we'll break it down regardless, just like we always do. So that's what's going on right now. We look at watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have some red flag warnings up. The good news is, though, this area will get some rain. In fact, some of this area is getting rain right at this moment. So this may help the fire danger risk up here, as we do have those red flag warnings for dry conditions and just, this area is starting to get rather dry. A lot of times this time of the year across the plains, it starts to get really dry. That's why it's important to get rain really in late winter, early spring in these areas, because sometimes you can enter some really dry periods once you get deeper into spring and early summer. But you do have these freeze warnings up right now for areas of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast and the Ohio Valley. It's quite chilly this morning for areas of the deep south also, but no frost advisories, freeze warnings, or anything like that. Excessive rainfall outlook for today. Guidance shows that it's below 5%, so no risk area, so that's good. The Storm Prediction Center, this will be a heavy topic over the next couple of days, but today just a a general risk of thunderstorms up here in the extreme northern portion of the lower 48. Then you got this kind of weird area right into here that could see a thunderstorm or two. Splotchy regions out west. We could get some storms down here in southern Texas. But there is a very small marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. Threat of severe weather. This is driven off a hail threat and a damaging wind threat, 5% both. And we could have a couple isolated, maybe scattered, strong to severe storms down here from Miami, just a little south, and then up the east coast of Florida for later on this morning into this afternoon. So we're going to break down the southeast and talk a little bit on that. 95% of the rest of the southeast is quiet, stable conditions, cooler than average temperatures for at least a day or two out here. We get into this afternoon, not a whole lot going on. I'm going to zoom in for my folks down here in Florida, so I'm not, skipping right over you guys. I'm going to talk about you guys here in a second. But you get into the overnight hours all the way into tomorrow morning. You notice for most of this area, there's really nothing going on. But we will zoom into the central and southern sections of Florida. We do got some storms out there right now. The HRRR model not doing the best at really showing where these storms are. But as we get to about midday, some storms could form and actually be a little bit more widespread just off the east coast of Florida. We'll see what happens with this. But some of these storms could form right along the coastline of Florida, from Miami, points north, maybe all the way to Fort Lauderdale, areas like this, maybe as far south as like the northern Florida Keys. Very possible, and they could be strong. I mean, look at this storm right here, Miami right into here. Big storms firing right into here, and a lot of these storms could kind of group up and then drift eastward and affect you folks in the Bahamas. We'll see what happens. Very scattered about. Some people might not get anything. Some people might get a very strong storm, so be aware of this in this entire region for today. Now the Northeast, very quiet weather, very calm conditions to kickstart your work week. We get into this afternoon, we get into this evening, we get into the overnight hours, and we start to see some energy entering your screen right over there. But, as far as the next 24 hours, this is not going to affect anybody. Pretty calm conditions, a nice weather start for sure for your work week. Now we head on down here to the south central U.S. Moisture still kind of confined. Whoa, that was weird. Confined down here to South Texas, so we could get some splotchy showers, downpours, maybe even a storm. And this keeps happening. You got to stop that. We get into this afternoon, this evening. That might kind of dwindle away. We get into the overnight hours, maybe some showers up there that are very possible. And this could be in the form of a storm or two in Nebraska and Iowa. But really just speaking on the south central U.S. here, there's a little area of energy, a little low right here. This could get some storms going tomorrow in maybe areas of Oklahoma and Texas as a weak front tries to drift in from the north to the south. But, all in all, today, very quiet day for the south central U.S. North central U.S., other than some showers, they're trying to drift through the Dakotas. They will try to enter Minnesota later on today. Very scattered about. Some people might not see anything. Others across the state might see some scattered showers. Minneapolis certainly could see some showers this afternoon. This will become a little bit more intense as it gets into the evening hours, as it moves eastward into Wisconsin. Could have an area, maybe a rumble of thunder embedded into this, but we're getting into this evening. Some heavy rain making its way through mainly the northern half of Wisconsin. Showers and maybe some heavier kind of areas of rain here in northeast Minnesota. And then this gets into the UP of Michigan later this evening. It could be a rainy late evening for you folks in the UP. Some showers and maybe even, like I said, areas of heavy rain kind of drifts through the area. We get to the overnight hours. Some of these showers and downpours will make it all the way down to lower Michigan. And then this energy will finally head into like Ontario. It's actually cold enough up here in Canada for some snow, as this low is riding pretty far south with the northern stream here. But waking up to some rainy times tomorrow morning for areas of Illinois, southeast Iowa, northeast Missouri. We have this area of rain that you're going to wake up to. The western U.S., a very quiet start, very quiet day. We get into this afternoon, not really anything going on. Maybe some scattered showers, downpours, maybe even a storm kind of that might pop up out here, but in general it doesn't really show much. Flurries across the Rockies of Colorado, and then we take it all the way to tomorrow morning. And guys, it's going to be a quiet day, very quiet day across the west, the Rockies. It's been pretty quiet for a while. honestly. But we are watching a storm system that could impact you guys. We'll talk about that here in a second. The entire eastern U.S., all in all, not a bad day. I mean, 60s getting all the way up into Minnesota, the UP of Michigan, all the way up to the U.S.-Canadian line. The Northeast, which, is famous for hanging on to winter for dear life once you start to get into spring. A chilly day, 50s, 40s, even some 30s. And even chilly for the Southeast. I mean, high temperatures in the Carolinas, Virginia, might struggle to get out the 50s and 60s. It was a very chilly day yesterday here in South Carolina. I think our high temperature for, yesterday was at midnight yesterday. So, a weird day where the temperatures actually kind of dropped throughout the day. Definitely yesterday was a very chill day across the Southeast where you just kind of took advantage of, gave yourself an excuse to take that Sunday nap when the weather is bad outside. But 70s and 80s across Florida. But the kind of the east central U.S., I mean, the Mississippi Valley, the Mid-South, the Ohio Valley, Deep South, 60s and 70s for highs. You're starting to warm up once you get into the plains, though. You got this more pocket. I mean, it's crazy. There was snow on the ground in these areas just a few days ago. Now you're getting up into the 70s and near 80 degrees where there was snow on the ground just a couple days ago. Pretty wild stuff. Northern Rock, I mean, everybody out west is pretty much above average temperature-wise, especially the Southwest where you guys are getting into the 80s and 90s, even some embedded 100s, even some low 90s are possible in the valley regions of California. So a nice day out west. So we're starting to move into tomorrow. There is a severe weather risk for our Tuesday. This is driven off a cold front that's going to sag to the south down here. This upper trough that's kind of bringing a little bit of energy today up here for the the upper Midwest and the north central U.S. It's going to be kind of the same feature that dives down here, provides just enough lift north of an unstable air mass in northern Texas and areas of southwestern Oklahoma. So we do have just a small risk of some damaging winds with some storms that form and some hail. Not really. There will be a tornado risk, just like there always is with a storm. You never can rule it out completely, but the ingredients really aren't here for tornadoes. So we need to watch this area for tomorrow. Really conditional threat. Atmosphere is building into this region, but just not very prime for enough lift for thunderstorms. Now the atmosphere is becoming a little bit more prime as we get into Wednesday. This is Wednesday's threat, kind of the same area. We're getting more storm energy, Cape levels that are rising in this area, building into this green area. So we got level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather, but kind of the same thing is going to stop storms from forming. Most likely that's going to stop them for tomorrow. For Wednesday is going to be kind of the same thing. A little bit of a cap in place, not a whole lot of, oomph in the atmosphere, if you will, to really get these storms going. So kind of another conditional threat of severe weather. And this is kind of driven off just a little bit of energy embedded into the ridge right in here. And just enough flow rounding the upper portion of this ridge into this area to try to get some storms going. But Wednesday won't be a big deal. Now as we start to get into our Thursday, this is when things start to get a little bit more serious. Thursday, this is now day 4, so we're starting to almost get to where we can actually see the categories and stuff like that. But we just got a slight risk from southern Nebraska, right here through central and west central Kansas, and then through western sections and central sections of Oklahoma, right into, pretty much splits the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas in half, all the way down to Lubbock, almost down to Abilene, does include Wichita Falls. A slight risk, which means a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. We're going to talk about what this is driven off of here in a second. And then we got day 5 now, which is for Friday. This could be a more significant deal. I really do think it will be. More of a higher end tornado risk. So we got a chance of severe weather all the way up here into Iowa, all the way down here into Waco, Texas. And everybody in this yellow area right in here, this doesn't almost include St. Louis, does include Kansas City, through Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Dallas, so Wichita. A level 2 out of 5, a slight risk, a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. Now, the same thing that's driving Thursday's event is driving Friday's event. Now, with Saturday's event, and if you tuned in on last night's video, it was a great video. We dove deep into it. We're diving deep into it again, but man, we dove really deep into it last night. But for Saturday's event, This is something totally different. Another upper trough is going to dive down in here and then eject across the middle of the country. This one could be a little bit more stronger, but we're still trying to figure out where is it going to eject, how strong is it going to be, how strong is the actual surface response going to be as far as that low. But we do have that 15% risk of severe weather from southern Kansas, small section of southwestern Missouri, northwestern Arkansas. I would say like 80% to 85% of the state of Oklahoma, northern Texas included in this. This is driven off something different. 15% risk of severe weather already at day 6. Now day 7, which is Sunday, says predictability too low. But I can almost bet a paycheck that we are going to get a 15% risk issued somewhere over the next couple days outside of day 3 for Sunday. And it'll probably be kind of up here somewhere. Okay, but for now, it says predictability too low. But you could have severe weather for Sunday, this coming Sunday, and next Monday, a week from today. This is all driven off this. The first 2 days are Thursday and Friday. See this area of blue? That's an area of lower pressure. The area of orange and yellowish color, that's higher pressure. So typically, when you're up under this, what we call a ridge of high pressure, stable, calmer, above average temperatures. Stable, calmer conditions associated with above average temperatures. And with the lower pressure, typically you got some sort of storminess, some type of storm system. And you typically have some sort of surface cold front associated with it that will cool you down for a day or two, or it could be a dramatic cool down. In this case, when it's cut off, not very dramatic. But let's keep this going. So we're getting into Thursday. You see this area of blue right into here. This is for Thursday afternoon. So what's going on with this? We'll try to explain this in a quick but detailed manner. This ridge is heading this way. This is warming up everybody influenced with this ridge. You're going to start to warm up in this area. Okay, but this area of lower pressure is kind of scooting in here, and it's starting to get a tilt. When these areas of blue kind of tilt like this, it's what we call a positive tilt. This means it's a weaker system. When they tilt like this, it's a neutral tilt. That means they're strengthening, at least trying to. All right, when they start to tilt kind of like this, that means they're taking on a negative tilt, which means you got a sign, at least for a period, of a strengthening storm system. So this does get that negative tilt on, but this is for Thursday afternoon. This is bringing a mid-level jet, basically a wind field in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and probably the low levels too. Once we get a little bit closer, this will show you that a little bit more, right into this region. At the same time, you already have a pretty moist air mass, dew points like in the 60s plus, already built into this region. Okay, so dew points, surface temperatures, higher dew points typically you typically get higher cape levels, storm energy. So what happens? Mid-level flow, enough lift for thunderstorms, wind energy, overlapping with that moist environment, and that happens, let's get this off, that happens probably somewhere into here. Now, one of the things that's going to maybe prevent this system from really getting going is just a bit of a cap in place, a little warm air aloft, but we'll see. But this is what's really driving Thursday's risk right into here, is this player right here, and this is helping to pull up southerly, southwesterly flow out ahead of this big blue blob right here, and certainly overlapping conditions. Now, you start to get into your Friday morning. Notice how this thing kind of tilts. Watch how it kind of goes like that, right? Remember, I talked to you about that negative tilt. This kind of starts to take on that, right? This ridge is kind of building northward, but in general, just scooting to the east. But the thing is this bridge is being stubborn because it's getting more amped up, and it's really building way up here. This is really preventing this energy from really going like this. Instead, it's going to go probably more so like this for the most part. And you kind of watch how that happens here as you keep going, and we start to get, there it is, we start to get into Friday afternoon. So there's two things going on Friday, right? There's the first feature, and then already the second feature that's going to drive a severe weather threat through the weekend already showing up on your picture. Kind of two separate darker areas of blue right in here. But this area of blue right in here is bringing severe weather, most likely. Remember that mid-level jet associated with it is probably going to be going just like this, and it's pulling all this moist air out the south, way up here. It's probably going to be some sort of surface low right in here associated with this area of lower pressure. It'll probably be some sort of triple point met right into here somewhere, bringing a lot of moist air up because you got a flow coming in out the south. Remember, around areas of low pressure, you get a flow that goes around areas of lower pressure like this. Now, with this kind of attachment right here, I mean, you're getting a lot of pull out the south, kind of wrapping around this area of lower pressure. Remember, higher pressures goes in the opposite direction. Okay, so we talk a lot on that in hurricane season. Stay tuned. It gets really interesting, and we nerd out a lot, just kind of like what we're doing right now. Now we get into Friday afternoon. This is bringing pretty much the setup for severe weather right in here. And if we kind of go back and look, at Friday, there it is. I mean, you got this huge area that has a shot at severe weather, and that is because you got this feature right here, and this is, driving a lot of wind flow aloft, and it's driving a surge of moist air right up here into this region because it's pulling a lot of just juice out the atmosphere to the north. So at the same time, you kind of keep this going. This becomes a little bit more of a non-factor, but there is still a little energy right in here. This could bring some severe weather potentially for the upper Midwest. But the really big story is this other area of lower pressure that begins to show up. And it's the same kind of deal, guys, except this is a little bit further south. So this is for Saturday, and you kind of go back and you look at this once again. There it is. 15% risk for Saturday. This is for Saturday. There's your blue blob, area of lower pressure, bringing same thing I just drew for the last blue blob, bringing those right conditions for severe weather, its own mid-level jet, if you will, with it, overlapping conditions for severe weather right over Texas. Now, Sunday, which is an area that isn't really showing up, and I think the reason is because it really shows this rapidly weakening. But this is still enough energy in the atmosphere embedded in a ridge building to the west now and already built to the east, which is really preventing the severe weather risk to really get into the east. That's why, if you're worried about an Ohio Valley, the mid-south, the southeast, I'm not saying you're not going to get any severe weather to end April, but I'm saying the worst is going to be to your west because this ridge is kind of saving you guys. But, the Euro has a much weaker area of lower pressure. It definitely weakens, but still bringing probably the atmospheric players for severe weather into the picture. Now, if something like the European does happen, I don't think you have to really worry about severe weather for the most part for Monday, but that might not be the case. You see these little dips right in here for like next Tuesday morning. You can see energy embedded into this ridge for sure. And you got a big blue blob entering the picture in the Pacific Northwest. So, I want to keep explaining that because one, it helps me understand and it helps you guys understand. But this is really kind of what shows it here is the ingredients in the atmosphere. Thursday morning, a big plume of moist air already sitting here down here in the southern plains in Oklahoma and Texas, right? And we start to get, and this is the Euro. We're going to just keep looking at the Euro for now. And, we start to get into Thursday afternoon. There's that pool of moist air. And it's funny because, if you look at the risk area for day 4, we'll kind of go back and look at it. It really just likes this area right in here. And if you look at this, look at that dry line, separation between really dry air, dew points like in the teens and single digits, and dew points in the 60s, which is, a typical thing here in the spring. It likes this area the most. And you're wondering, well, why isn't there a 15% risk in this area over here, like dew points in the 60s in Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana? I'll tell you why here in a second. But, we focus on thermodynamics here, and we get into Friday as this energy ejects across the plains. This is continuing to, remember I was kind of drawing on the map. It's pulling up that low-level moisture across the plains. And, we start to get into Friday afternoon, prime heating of the day. There's that triple point being met way up here. I mean, check that out. Dew points all the way into the 60s, into the Sioux City, Sioux Falls region, all the way up into Iowa. This is going to bring a large, broad area that has an opportunity for severe weather for Friday. These dew points well into the 60s, pretty far north, deep into the 60s down here. And remember, if you're wondering, you keep saying 60s, Mitch, dew points. I don't understand what that means. dew points, I will say this, and I haven't said this in a long time. I actually made a video on it about 3 or 4 years ago. Um, it was basically a video talking about, should I gauge how humid it is outside based off looking at the humidity percentage or the dew points. And a lot of people, they'll get on their Weather Channel app, they'll get on their app and they'll look at try to gauge how humid it is outside, and they'll look at the percentage. And it'll say something like, it's like 68% humidity outside. And you're thinking, okay, well, it's not that humid outside, but your dew point is like 74. It is very humid outside if your dew points are in the 70s regardless. So it's not a good measure to really gauge how humid it truly is outside. And I dive deep into that in that video. No time to do it right now. But if you're trying to figure out how humid it is outside, look at your dew points. They show up on your Weather Channel apps too. And if they're in the 70s, you bet your butt it is very humid outside, even in the upper 60s. So enough of all of that. There's a little educational thing there. But dew points, certainly supportive enough for severe weather pretty far north. Now, you keep this going, right? And we start to get into our Saturday. Now, the air mass kind of gets, I would say, doesn't dwindle away. It's still quite humid up here, but it gets tilted. And that's why I do think we could have a severe weather risk, or at least a risk for thunderstorms in the Great Lakes region, potentially Saturday, still driven off this first system. What I want you to notice here is the air mass begins to recover. Notice you got dews in like the 30s, kind of Friday evening down here in Texas. But watch how this huge, rich air mass builds right back in for Saturday. And by the time we get into Saturday afternoon, the air mass is ripe again. Right into the 60s. It recovers very fast, and that is because this next system digs down into the southern Rockies, and which is this system right here, right? See this system? This system digging back down, pulling all that low-level moisture as you got the flow around this lower pressure going like this. This is pulling that southerly flow, bringing all that moisture, and there it is. In response, your dew points are rising once again, going to bring that severe weather risk. And then it gets kind of weird for Sunday. You got dews that are well into the 60s, pretty far north. But do you have the other ingredients? And, in response to those higher dew points, you do have the higher CAPE levels. And we'll kind of go through this a little bit faster. But, you look at Thursday, there's your energy in the atmosphere. CAPE levels well over 2,000, 2,500, almost 3,000 joules per kilogram. A lot of energy in the atmosphere. But are you going to get these storms to fire? And then you start to get into the overnight hours, which I think there'll be storms ongoing across the plains Thursday night into Friday morning. And then you start to get into Friday afternoon. Look at this little triple point being met up here. I'm actually kind of surprised they kind of cut down the severe weather 15% risk from up here, and it kind of cuts off down here. I honestly think there could be like a bimodal setup for Friday. I think there could be a bigger area to watch down here to the south and way up here to the north near the triple point. You're wondering why you keep saying triple point. Well, that's right up near the actual surface low where you have the best kinematics, but you have just enough fuel in the atmosphere for storms. And typically, that's when you can get some of your best ingredients for tornadoes. So we got to watch wherever that sets up, and that just depends on where the surface low is. A lot of energy in the atmosphere here, kind of scattered about, getting ate up by these storms. And then it begins to re-amp, and you got a CAPE bomb down here, just a bomb full of energy, just really ready to be tapped into down here for Saturday. And you got a lot of energy in the atmosphere Saturday midday. Storms are already firing, trying to eat it all up. You see how it's kind of like, looks like Pac-Man right here? Well, not really. You know what I'm saying. It's getting kind of ate up right here. Those are the storms firing up, eating up all that energy. And then, we got to watch Sunday too. It gets kind of weird Sunday, but there's still energy extending pretty far up. And I want to watch this weekend for a little bit of northwest flow action too. You notice there's a little bit of energy in the atmosphere for Sunday evening along the Ohio Valley too. So you could have enough flow kind of getting embedded into this ridge. Just kind of have to watch that. And then, of course, we look at the kinematics, which is something that's very important too, if I still got people hanging on to watching the video. But there's your first shortwave trough, your upper low for the Thursday and Friday event. And if you notice in the purplish colors, that's a mid-level flow of pushing 50 to 60 knots. We call this area right here the exit region of this jet. This is where you'll have the best forcing for storms, and this is beginning to enter that 15% risk area right here where the ingredients has really built in. This is going to provide lift in the atmosphere for storms, and they will most likely form right into here. Now, I mean, I know you're thinking, well, why isn't like northern Mexico and southern sections of like New Mexico not getting storms when they got all this lift in the atmosphere? Well, remember, you still got very dry air over here. All your moisture is way over here. So there's no higher dew points over here. This is that desert dry air. Typically, you don't get dew points into the 60s into the desert southwest for the most part, unless you get some weird tropical system that comes up from the Pacific. But, you start to get into Friday, that mid-level field begins to get a lot stronger, more expansive, larger. And then we start to get into Friday afternoon, and you really got kind of a maximum mid-level jet right into here, pushing over 80 knots, a lot of flow in the atmosphere, overriding a very moist atmosphere right into here. So you're going to have just a, widespread area that's going to run the risk of severe weather, have plenty of lift in the atmosphere for severe weather, and you got to watch an embedded low-level jet right into here. Right up next to that surface low. And then here comes our next system. There's Saturday and Sunday's risk right into here. Dives down, takes on that neutral to negative tilt. And of course, already for Saturday afternoon, plenty of lift in the atmosphere, overriding a very moist air mass in the southern plains. A lot of storm energy. We just got to figure out the details with this. And then you start to get into Saturday night and Sunday morning. Look at all this flow riding over Oklahoma and northern Texas, Arkansas, getting into Missouri. What's going to be the other ingredients driving this? But we could have a severe weather threat ongoing then too. And then this is beginning to weaken, but we're getting into midday Sunday, and I want to watch this area for Sunday, right across the kind of the Mississippi Valley, Missouri Valley, Midwest region, maybe all the way into the Great Lakes region, maybe. We got to watch that too. So, that's a mouthful. We got a few more videos to do it, but we're going to keep doing it because it helps us understand, and it helps me understand, and I know a lot of you guys appreciate it. But I like you guys as the audience to really understand what's driving these severe weather threats. I think some, and you tell me if you agree or disagree. There's a lot of people that suffer from the storm anxiety, and I certainly have learned that a lot more since running a YouTube channel and just hearing from you guys. And I do think it could help you guys. Some people have told me it's helped them when you actually have an understanding of what drives this severe weather. Sometimes I do think some people just jump on the video and don't. I'm just being honest. Guys, I'm always honest and personal with you guys. Sometimes I do think, and I think it happens during winter weather too. And I understand not everybody has time to watch the video, but I do think sometimes people just kind of jump on the video and just say, hey, Mitch, is there going to be severe weather in my state? And sometimes I'll see people drop a comment like that literally 2 minutes after I drop the video, and it's like, yeah, I don't think that person actually even attempted to watch the video. So it's important, guys, to try to, and maybe not for everybody, but I think it's important to understand what's going on, especially if you have somewhat of an interest in the weather. 3 years ago, I didn't know 80% of the knowledge I know now. And 3 years ago, I still ran a YouTube channel. So, I'm always learning. I'm not telling you guys, to nerd out with me and to make kind of force feed weather being your passion. Just telling you guys that it is important to learn what drives all this stuff. I think it's even more important in hurricane season. And when that starts, it's supposed to be a really bad hurricane season. We are really, really going to get detailed on all the features that drive everything that goes on out there. But that's all I got. God bless all y'all. Y'all have a wonderful Monday, and I'll talk to you again soon.